apparently to recoup costs incurred through the year, has caused uproar. The numerous consumer complaints have prompted legal action, with lawyers offering to represent consumers in court against the power distributor.
In the event that within 3 days I don't see any movement, you can bet at the end of the week we are in court.
Cabinet Secretary for Energy Charles Keter sought to address the complaints, mostly raised by consumers still on the post-paid billing system.
From today henceforth, as they work on that, there will be no estimation of meters. You are billed on your actuals, or you are not billed, so that people avoid this backdating. According to
Keter, Kenya Power has for the past 3 months been upgrading its billing system, with some employees opting to issuing estimated power consumption bills to consumers instead of using the correct meter readings.
Estimating this month, and then that is why sometimes even people don't receive bills on time, or when they receive bills, some are zero, and then next month you'll find a different figure.
A situation that the utility provider says will now end following introduction of new meter reading gadgets and mobile application to allow consumers track their bills.
The gadget which we have doesn't allow that. It doesn't work outside the radius of 50 meters. So these avoid a staff sitting in the office.
At the same time, going forward, the Energy Regulatory Commission says it will work on a standardized tariff for all prepaid power consumers. Currently, small power consumers pay less for electricity tokens.
In the next 3 months, we are going to review that category of consumers to ensure that we introduce a tariff category where it will be uniform throughout. Whether you are consuming 20, 50 or 100, you will have a uniform cost of energy.
So far, 2.4 million Kenyans remain on the analog post-billing system, while 4 million consumers are prepay for their power. CS Keter has asked consumers with complaints over their bills to contact Kenya Power.
Thank you very much, Mumbi Waroi, for that story. Now, we are joined in the studio this morning, like I told you earlier, and I've been telling you since 6 o'clock by Robert Pavel. Robert Pavel is the Director General, Energy Regulatory Commission, the body mandated to protect the interest of consumers and to regulate the energy sector in this country. Good morning, Robert, and welcome to
Good morning, Charles.
Now, we are inviting you at a time when the prices of electricity are skyrocketing, and virtually everybody, including my own director, is complaining about inflated bills that they received from November, December, and this month. What's happening?
I think we did a clarification yesterday, a press conference which I attended, and the Minister for Energy, Honorable Charles Keter. Really, the energy prices have not gone up. What happened is that there were some errors in billing. Kenya Power was upgrading their billing system, and as a result, there were errors during the transfer from the old billing system to the new billing system. So what has happened is that any errors that have arisen from anybody's bill, Kenya Power has been directed to ensure that all the customers who have errors in billing should go to the Kenya Power banking halls and look for the energy champion to make sure that their issues are being addressed. We as the regulator have also issued a directive to Kenya Power to ensure that they are resolving all the complaints arising from errors in billing. I wish also to clarify that there are instances due to the system upgrade, the billing system upgrade, where some meters for consumers was not read. And as a result of not reading these consumers, Kenya Power estimated the bills. These occurred for a period of 3 to 4 months ago.
That's from November?
It occurred from around September. So this estimation of bills, is a bit erroneous. For instance, I can just give you an illustration. If you're a consumer and you're using, say, 150 units of electricity every month, that's your average consumption. And due to one reason or another, it is a holiday season, you may have changed your appliances, so your consumption in the 3 months that Kenya Power did not read the bills went up to an average of 200 units per month. Now, Kenya Power has been billing you the last 3 months for 150 units. That means there is an arrears of 50 units every month. Yeah. So when they now billed in this month, you got a bill of 200 plus the arrears of 50, which was for 3 months. That is 50 times 3,
So
which is 150. So you look at it, is that your bill will come to around 450 units, plus your normal consumption. The arrears of 50, plus the average consumption of 200 for that month. So you look at it and say, my bill has sort of doubled. So we have said that what the customers needs to do is to go to Kenya Power and raise a complaint. And we have discussed with Kenya Power and agreed that any customer who has such a complaint, they are going to discuss with Kenya Power and agree on a period of payment. We want to put it clear that nobody is going to be disconnected for these arrears of bills that were that arose as a sort of estimation.
Is that a guarantee?
Yes, that is guaranteed. Yes.
I wonder what our listeners have to say about this, especially the coincidence about the upgrading and the announcement by Kenya Power about the 8 billion shillings that they need to repay. Now you can join us in the conversation on 22422 or Citizen Kenya on Twitter and tell us what you think about this. But even as we wait to hear from our listeners, could you explain the coincidence, the upgrading, the problem with the upgrading, all these estimates, and then now the recent announcement of an 8 billion shilling debt that has to be repaid?
I want to bring this to perspective in that in the bill, we have what we call the pass-throughs. Pass-throughs are computed by ERC every month. The pass-throughs are variable cost of the bills. This constitutes what we call the fuel cost charge. It consists of inflation adjustment. It also consists of other levies like forex adjustment. Now, because of these pass-throughs that are variable every month, the Commission is the only body mandated to regulate electricity. We normally compute this, do a Kenya Gazette publication, which then we notify Kenya Power now to implement. I want to note that the 8.2 billion, any bill that is to be incorporated or passed into consumers must get Commission approval before Kenya Power can implement any changes. So whatever that is going on in the media is actually erroneous, because the Commission is there to approve any adjustment. Kenya Power has no authority. It's a utility, like any other regulated entity. The Energy Regulatory Commission has the sole mandate of approving.
As a regulator, are you aware about,
ministry.
Sorry, as a regulator, are you aware about this 8.2 billion shilling debt by Kenya Power?
I want to note that the 8.2 billion is not what has been charged to customers. What the customers have been charged is just the variation that arose as a result of the billing system upgrade, which, as I've explained, occurred because of estimation of bills. Now, the 82.2 billion, most of it is part of what we call the fuel cost charge. Now, during 2017, better part of it, we had a severe drought. At one time, we closed Masinga Dam that supplies cheap hydropower, and also we had some geothermal being offline, about 30 megawatts. Again, if you look at what happened from early 2017, the cost of petroleum prices increased from about $30 to about $63 now. That is almost a double increase on the price of petroleum products. The thermals, the power plants that use petroleum are actually dependent on what we call heavy fuel oil, which is a product of petroleum, of crude oil. So as a result, any small use of the thermal power plants resulted in an increase in the fuel cost charge. I want to clarify that the fuel cost charge that is currently in use, we have passed a cost of about 4 shillings and 35 cents per kilowatt hour, and that cost has been in place since November. So the 8.2 billion is a cost that arose out of the fuel cost charge, and that is a regulated cost. It's not part of what the consumers are experiencing. Because if that was the case, that this is part of it, then the bills could have gone up from the month of December, when customers are billed.
So how is Kenya Power going to recoup this money if you're saying it's not going to be billed on?
You see, what happens is that we as the regulator, do set what we call an equilibrium pass-through for the fuel cost charge. This equilibrium pass-through looks at the most reduced cost of energy to the consumers. We have other users of energy like the industrial and commercial users who actually want predictability in terms of the price of electricity. For instance, if you're a manufacturer, you don't want to wake up one morning and you find the price has gone so much high. So we
Because
have
it
sort
will
of
impact
within
on
the
your
Energy
profit
Act,
margin.
yeah, it will impact on the profit margin. In the Energy Act, we have the mandate to set the prices of some of these costs. So what we do is that wherever the hydrology is good, and also we are having more geothermal being produced, we set the fuel cost charge at a level that we save for the customers. And when the fuel cost charge is very high, when it goes very high, like now I've explained that due to international oil prices and hydrology, we sort of had a fair price for especially the industrialists to ensure that they're not paying too much. And when the hydrology improves, we now try to recoup some of these costs to ensure that we have sort of a stable pricing mechanism for consumers, especially for the manufacturers. So in essence, this is a regulated service, and the part of the 8.1 is really not what Kenyans are complaining about. This is a different matter altogether.
Now, one of your core mandates, actually, I think the second mandate as far as your website is concerned, is to protect the interest of consumers. When during a season we have drought, we have the cost of petroleum going up, and we have about, you said, 32 megawatts of geothermal power shut down. What do you do as a regulator to ensure that this does not recur or this does not impact on the livelihood of Kenyans?
Now, we worked on a framework which we call a stabilization fund or a hedging fund. You have seen the cost of petroleum has been moving up because we don't have that kind of fund in the petroleum products. Now, you remember in the last 1 year or so, the price of petroleum was much below 90 shillings. Now we are in the range of 100 shillings for super petrol. Now, what we are working on, which is in consultation with the National Treasury, the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, and of course the regulator and other industry players, we want to create a fund. You can call it a hedging fund or stabilization fund. This fund will ensure that when we are having low international oil prices, we sort of have an equilibrium price where we save into this kitty. And once like now we are on high international petroleum prices, we draw from this kitty.
So you say for a rainy day?
Yeah, for a rainy day. The goodness of this kind of mechanism is that you and me and other energy users will be able to plan the energy usage. It's like a budget. The government has a yearly budget, private companies have a budget, and normally you have to work within the budget guidelines.
What time frame are we looking for the stabilization fund?
We're already at an advanced stage of setting up this, and we are looking that by the next financial year, by July, we should have a stabilization fund, both for electricity that is properly managed with the signatories from the ministry, the treasury, and the regulator, and of course we'll also have another account, it's the same fund, but also dealing with petroleum prices. So again, this brings more stability in the prices. You can plan that your consumption of electricity in your house is 1,000 shillings a month, and you don't
for
have
the
to
next
spend,
1 year.
For the next 1 year, you don't have to spend more. Then, so that we are able to enable the business environment and also the consumers.
You can join us in this conversation with Mr. Robert Pavel, the Director General, Energy Regulatory Commission, as we look at the cost of energy in the country now. Electricity bills for low-income houses could rise from April, while charges for middle-income houses are set to drop, with the expected coming to an end of the subsidies to small consumers. This is an announcement you made yesterday, and our viewers can join us on 22422 and give us their thoughts about this. Now, when this issue came up about the cost of electricity, one of the concerns that people had was the monopoly of Kenya Power Company. As a regulator, are you considering opening up the field, the sector, so that we have competition?
I want to take the first question of bills.
No, we'll come to that.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, Kenya Power is really not a monopoly. I'm speaking as a regulator. Kenya Power is not a monopoly. We have licensed other distribution companies, other utilities. There are many companies that have come up to distribute power in our region. There are also many mini-grids that have come up. If you look at the Energy Act, it does not prescribe that the Kenya Power Licensing Company is the only entity that is going to distribute power in the country. What is happening is that Kenya Power seems to be the largest, and it's not a creation of the law that Kenya Power is a monopoly. And I also want to state that Kenya Power is regulated like any other energy entity, any other energy body. So really, the perception out is there. Kenya Power does not decide that this is the prices of electricity to pass consumers. Kenya Power also does not. We as a regulator, we have this mandate of consumer protection. and it's our duty. That's why I said that any customer who has any issues on their bills, the Commission has the mandate and has the authority to direct Kenya Power to resolve any customer issues. And where they're not able to resolve the customer, we now step in as the regulator and give a directive that this bill should be addressed like this. So really, what I want to say that Kenya Power is not a monopoly.
It's not a monopoly.
And any other company, international company, local company, that wants to dispute power in any region, they are welcome to approach us as the regulator, and we will give them approvals. So far, we have approved about 4 companies to dispute power in various regions.
Yes. Sell power.
Sell power to consumers. So really, you cannot say that Kenya Power is a monopoly. It's only that they are the national utility who seems to be covering the better part of Kenya. But in essence, they're not.
Now, research has shown that diesel power is bought at a cost of about 6 shillings. Geothermal power is bought at about 5 shillings, and hydropower is bought about 4 shillings. Why can't you encourage the sellers or the utilities to go for hydropower throughout? Because we are sitting in the middle of the tropics, and we seem to have quite a number of rivers still flowing.
Thank you very much.
Won't it be cheaper?
I agree with you. Geothermal power is cheap for this country. Hydropower is cheap for this country. But now we have a constraint. During the peak time, when you require a lot of power, the power demand for this country is about 1,750. That is from around 5 p.m. to around 10 p.m. Our combined power from geothermal and hydro is about 1,400. The difference has to be met.
About 250.
About 250, say 300, has to be met from thermal power plants. We have seen there is a study that was conducted that showed that it is sometimes very expensive for you, the consumers, to switch on your diesel power plant, your diesel plant, to your diesel generator, to be able to give you power, or rather forgo the energy that you get as a consumer. So it's sometimes good for the country, instead of bringing a blackout or switching off users, it's sometimes good to use the expensive generation to ensure that every Kenyan has power. They can watch their TV, they can, their fridge will be on. They can also use the electronics in their house. So really what we are doing is that during the peak time, we are now compelled due to demand to be able to use. But I want to quickly state that we are expecting cheap generation. There is solar, the Garissa solar 50 megawatt is being commissioned. We also expect the Turkana wind to give us about 300 megawatt that is coming soon. There are also other cheap generation from small hydros that is coming in. So this scenario whereby we are forced to use the expensive thermal power plants is not, is actually a short-term problem. In the short run, we are going to have these cheap generations coming in, and it's this year 2018. And we are looking at a situation that we are going to actually not use any more thermals. Another thing I just want to add is that some thermal power plants, their power purchase agreement are about to expire. And we have agreed with the ministry, who is the policy provider, that we are not going to renew the power purchase agreement for thermal power plants that have expired. This means that the about 4 shillings and 35 cents that is normally passed through to consumers will not be there. So if your bill has been, say, 14 or 15 shillings, like for commercial consumers, it means the bills are going to reduce to about 11 or 12 shillings once we do away with the fuel cost charge. So really in the short term, we are really seeing a situation whereby the cost of power in this country
will go down.
Will go down.
How short is the short term?
We are looking at in a span of 1 year.
1 year.
We are also, the energy is one of the enablers of the big 4 areas the president has said he's going to concentrate on. And without energy, manufacturing will not happen. The agro-processing is not going to happen. The creation of jobs that is dependent on agro-processing and manufacturing is not going to happen. The housing.
Which brings me to a major concern that has been raised by quite a number of issues, a number of people. Is it just about the quantity? Is it just about distribution of power or taking power lines? Or is it also about the quality, ensuring that there is power 24/7? Because the rate at which we have blackouts in various parts of the country is just enormous.
I can tell you in the last 6 months, things have been done differently, in that we are looking at the quality of power. And that's why if you look at it, talk to the industrialists. Most of them have seen lower blackouts. We agree there are areas like the western part of Kenya where there is constraint in terms of the infrastructure, the transmission lines. But now what is happening is that you're working on a number of fronts to ensure that we address the quality issues in power, to ensure that if you're a manufacturer, you're getting quality power. that can enable your machines to run efficiently. If you are a consumer, we are giving you that power when you need it. Currently, as I mentioned, we have about 2,300 megawatts installed. We have challenges in taking power to some parts of the country. The ability to take, like now, geothermal to Mombasa was solved a few months ago when we launched the Nairobi-Mombasa line to enable us to take geothermal. And again, these are seen actually the growth of demand in the last few months, from about 1,600 to about now 1,750, which is a good thing. So we are really looking at all these things in terms of planning for cheap power for the country. And also, the other thing that the regulator is looking at on a serious note is addressing efficiency of operation, especially the utility. Kenya Power, we are looking at how do we make them more efficient, minimize system losses, minimize, improve on operational efficiency, and also not only Kenya Power, and also KenGen, to ensure that any savings out of that, we pass them to the consumer.
Now, as a regulator, our listeners, our viewers are a bit disturbed by how strongly you come on Kenya Power, who are still seen as a monopoly, although you have explained that they are not a monopoly. And on our SMS line, mbona watu wa Kenya Power wanafikiria or guess bills hawasomi ama hawafiki majumbani? Somebody else says, staff in Kenya Power cannot resolve anything. They disconnect you and ask you to pay first, then complain. It's a nightmare to be disconnected. Always they have to be bribed with 200 shillings or more, as well as official reconnection fee and your bill. That is from Faith in Nanyuki. I'm a resident of Naivasha rural area, and my meter, since I connected, has never been billed less than 1,300 shillings, and now stands between 2,000 and 3,500. Or people who are connected together people who are connected together with have never paid more than 600 shillings. I have complained, no help has come. I have vowed not to pay. I will use kerosene at 800 shillings per month. I am better off. Then somebody says, no, I do not accept that explanation about justifying the wrong bills. You cannot be surcharged for a pack of unga that you already consumed 4 months ago. Kenya Power is a monopoly, and this is where the problem is. Mtunji from Malindi.
Now, the concerns about the bills, I think I've explained that. Yeah. And I just want to clarify that the minister gave a policy directive that going forward, by end of this month of January 2018, no customer is going to be back-billed, and no customer is going to have an estimated bill. One of the key benefits that's coming out of the new billing system that Kenya Power is installing is the ability to enable easier meter reading. There are areas that you can go, the meter readers go to read the bills, but they cannot get access due to the fact that because of security issues, they are not allowed to access. The new system that has been introduced enables the meter readers to read any meter that is within a radius of 50 meters. You can imagine the size of a football pitch, half of it. So if you come to proximity of any meter that is within 50 meters, you are able to pick the meter. The other good feature, I just want to note that with the Kenyans with smartphones, you can take, Kenya Power is going to release an application that runs on a smartphone, that when you use that application to take a picture of your meter, because of one reason or another they are not able to access that application will be able to read the current meter reading and put it back into your account. So there are good things that are coming out of this new billing system, and we request Kenyans to ensure that this system is supported, because at the end of the day, if we don't have meter readers coming to read your bills, that means it will be cheaper. We will take off the cost of meter readers, and that will be passed on to Kenyans.
What do you think, as our viewer? 22422 is a number to reach us through and talk to Mr. Robert Pavel, the Director General, Energy Regulatory Commission. Now tell us about electricity bills, especially for poor homes. You have just told us that it will be more efficient and more affordable in about a year's time, and here you are saying from April, poor homes will be paying more for electricity.
I think, Charles, I want to clarify that what we are dealing with is trying to harmonize the domestic consumers. We have various categories for domestic consumers. Those who consume from 0 to 50 units are having a different charge for
these are the small consumers.
The small consumer, what we call the lifeline consumers. We have also the medium consumers, I can say, who consume between 50 or 51 units and 1,500. What has been happening, especially those who purchase tokens, is that due to the structure of the tariff, in that there is a cost for energy, there is a cost for fixed charge, and also there are other taxes and pass-throughs. What happens is that when you purchase a token, you pay for the fixed cost charge when you do first time on that billing month. Now, the fixed cost charge for domestic consumers is 150 shillings. Now, when you purchase the next units, which are below, say, 50 units, now you'll not pay for the fixed cost charge. You will now pay for the energy and the other taxes and pass-through.
This is what they call the standing charges?
Yes, the standing charges. But these are paid only once, the fixed cost charge. Now, what happens is that if you exceed the band, you move from, say, 50 units to around 70 units. Now, the energy charge changes from about 2 shillings 50 cents to about 12 shillings. That variability is what we are trying to address as a regulator. What we are saying is that we want to enable the domestic consumers to have a more predictable way of purchasing electricity every month. In that, for the month that we set the pass-throughs, you are going to be sure that this will be the cost of energy that you're going to pass through. I just also want to clarify that we are cognizant of the fact that there are disadvantaged Kenyans, the lifeline consumers, who need electricity just for lighting, maybe charging their phone and playing the radio. We're still going to look at that and see what is the best way to support this, because one of the key things we're looking at in this country is to grow the consumption. Once we have more people consuming electricity, it means that Kenya Power, the utility, will be able to make their profit margin from the many units that they sell, the economies of scale. So we are keen to look at the lifeline and see how to protect them, but the category that we will come up with is that it will be more predictable in a month. Not where you purchase today the units, then tomorrow you are paying a different cost for the units. And for Kenyans, they cannot tell the difference. We as a regulator, we are monitoring this, and I can assure you that no Kenyan is being overcharged when they buy the tokens. It's only that the methodology implemented is a bit too technical.
And has not been explained well.
It has not been explained well. But we have decided, the ministry's agreement, we're going to do a tariff model that will enable you to be sure that if you bought 10 units and they cost you, say, 100 shillings, you are sure that when you buy in the next 2 weeks, you pay the same cost.
For the same number of
For the same number of
So what you're saying in a nutshell is this is not true. Poor homes will not pay more from April?
Yeah, the poor homes will be considered.
They will be considered.
What we are saying is that we'll look at the banding. The banding. We'll probably come up with a band that supports the poor homes and also have another band that supports the medium domestic consumers. And in all this, we are looking at a predictable cost of a unit in every month.
As time moves on and consumption increases, as a regulator, do you have any plans for reusable energy? Population is increasing. We are having a lot of energy go to waste. Are you people having any blueprints for reusable energy in future?
I don't know if you're referring to renewable energy.
Yeah. Renewable, rather.
Renewable energy. Yeah. We have a lot of plans for renewable energy in this country. And as I told you, our bills, we're really looking at the region. Kenya is not the most expensive. We are in the middle. But the objective of the regulator and of the government is to ensure that we bring in the cheap renewables. The government has given a lot of emphasis to the development of geothermal, which is cheap power. We are also giving a lot of emphasis to the development of other renewables like solar and wind. We are also giving a lot of emphasis to the development of coal. I'm sure you are aware we are developing about 1,000 megawatt of coal in Lamu County. And this coal power plant is actually, we have analyzed the weighted impact on the cost of generation. This will have an impact of about 10% in the cost of generation, which means that the consumers' bills will also reduce by 10%. We as a country, this coal is, I can say, clean coal technology that meets World Bank standards of emissions. So it's a power plant that we as government we are supporting in a big way. And the developers are about to hit the ground and develop the plant. So we are looking at that in the short term. We are going to have a mix of clean energy from coal, hydro, wind and solar. But also we want to bring in this base load, what we call the 1,000 megawatts, that will also make the cost of energy go down. The end game of this is that we want to ensure that Kenya is an attractive destination for the heavy consumers, the manufacturers, who really need to come and create the jobs and also create re-energization.
So your main interest is the heavy consumers, and this will trickle down to the light consumers. Thank you very much, Mr. Robert Pavel, Director General, Energy Regulatory Commission. We were looking at the cost of electricity in the country, and it was a pleasure having you on the set. We can do this again some other time. Power Breakfast continues after a short break with Joy Moving.